My MIL announced my miscarriage at dinner, and I announced her affair at her anniversary party. I was 12 weeks pregnant when I felt something warm running down my leg during work. I went to the bathroom and saw blood soaking through my dress. I called my husband Mac with shaking hands and said, "Something's wrong with the baby. There's so much blood. Come get me now." He said, "I'm on my way, don't move," and I could hear him grabbing his keys and running. By the time they got me into a room and hooked up to the monitors, our baby was already gone. The doctor used words like spontaneous and nothing you could have done, but all I heard was that the tiny heartbeat we'd seen on the ultrasound 3 weeks ago had stopped, and there was no medical reason why. Mac sat on the edge of my hospital bed and put his face in his hands and cried, and I reached for him and said, "I'm so sorry," and he looked up and said, "Don't, this isn't your fault," and pulled me into his chest, and we stayed like that until the nurse came to tell us about next steps. We agreed to tell no one until we were ready. "I can't handle your mother right now," I said, and Mac nodded and said, "I know, we'll tell people when you're ready. No one needs to know yet." I trusted him because I had no reason not to, and I forgot that keeping secrets from his mother Lorena was impossible because she had a key to our house and used it whenever she felt like it. 3 days later, I was sitting on the kitchen floor crying into a onesie I'd bought the week before when I heard the front door open, and there was Lorena standing over me with grocery bags in her hands and her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. "Well," she said, looking around at the tissues scattered across the floor and the empty ice cream container on the counter, "This is quite a scene." I wiped my face and said, "Lorena, I wasn't expecting you," and she stepped over me to set her bags on the counter and said, "Clearly. You know, when Mac told me you weren't feeling well, I assumed it was something minor. A cold, maybe. Not a complete breakdown in the middle of the day." She turned and looked at the onesie in my hands, and her eyes narrowed. "Is that baby clothes? Why are you sitting on the floor crying over baby clothes, Elise?" I didn't want to tell her anything, but she kept staring at me with that look she gave servers when her food came out wrong, and the words came out anyway because I was exhausted and empty, and I just wanted her to leave. "I lost the baby," I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. 3 days ago. We weren't going to tell anyone yet. Lorena's face changed into something that almost looked like sympathy if you didn't know her well enough to see the calculation behind it. She lowered herself to the floor beside me and grabbed my hands and said, "Oh, honey, that explains everything. I knew something was off with you lately, but I thought you were just being moody again." I said, "I'm not being moody. I lost my baby," and she squeezed my hands and said, I know, and I'm sure you're blaming yourself even though the doctor probably told you these things just happen sometimes, especially with first pregnancies, especially when the mother is under a lot of stress." She looked at me with her head tilted. "You have been under a lot of stress, haven't you? Working all those hours, not taking care of yourself properly. I told Mac months ago that you needed to slow down, but you never listened to me." I pulled my hands away and said, "The doctor said it wasn't anything I did," and Lorena nodded slowly and said, "Of course he did. They always say that, but we both know you could have taken better care of yourself, eaten better, rested more. You're not exactly known for putting your family first, are you?" She patted my knee. "But what's done is done. No point dwelling on it now." I said, "Please don't tell anyone. I need time before the whole family knows." And she put her hand over her heart and said, "Sweetheart, I would never betray your trust like that. I swear on my marriage this stays between us until you're ready, though I do think the family deserves to know eventually. They've been asking about grandchildren for years, and it's not fair to keep them in the dark."